We were out of luck. The tanks and the SPW, 2 kilometers ahead, were discovered, and the enemy air force attacked. So we had to take cover again, and hide as best as we could. We saw the Yabos repeatedly dive on the column. Smoke rose up, but enemy planes were also hit. When they finally flew away, we pulled the SPW from the column to get the wounded as quickly as possible. We spread out and rolled off to the left and right of the road, digging through the fields to give cover to the comrades of the attacked train. 2 vehicles to the west, 2 to the east. The smoke columns were visible from far away, and that was a problem. That would attract more planes, and they would also attack the medic vehicles. So everything had to go quickly. We looked for a higher point and drove up to a small embankment. The tower still looked out, but was well camouflaged due to the strong vegetation. I searched the area and couldn't find anything unusual. It was reported that the enemy were constantly breaking through, or paratroopers were occupying individual fixed points. But they couldn't hold out for long, and were only prepared for longer fights to a limited extent. They were supposed to join the advancing wheel parts, but if they didn't come, they would be soon worn out. Rudolf came up to the tower, and I gave him the binoculars. "What do you think, Rudy?" I said to him. He focused on a point in the terrain for a long time. "There, Peter," he said to me. Something flashed in the farmhouse. Could have been the binoculars. I smiled at him and joked about whether he could even see the farmhouse with his eye. He laughed and gave me the glasses back. "Look for yourself and wait." I stared at the house for almost 5 minutes. Then, a movement. Or what was that just now? Had my eyes played a trick on me? If there's a VB sitting there and he's discovered us, then we're going to get a big one on the roof. But apparently he hasn't seen us here yet, and it's probably not worth directing the ship guns at the damaged column again. I tried to bring up infantry to have a look at it, but they were not available, and by the time they were down there, it would take far too long anyway. What to do was the question. "Go for yourself," Rudy suggested. I declined. "We'd rather smoke them out." The platoon leader agreed, and Rudolf asked if he could sit at the gunner's seat. Helmut, my gunner, left him on the optics, but said if the target was an enemy tank, then rather not. I could understand that. Helmut wants to have his kills on the Panther, and I wouldn't mind either. So Rudy stuck to the optics. I had explosive grenades loaded. Only we should shoot. The tank standing 200 meters further west should not reveal its position. I gave the fire command and waited. Rudy pressed the electric firing, and I could follow the projectile until it hit the window in the farmhouse. Seconds later, the interim country shooter reported the next grenade in the breach. Rudy didn't shoot. "What's wrong, Rudy?" I asked over the intercom. Wait a bit. Apparently, he was still correcting. Then it banged, and the second grenade completely tore apart the roof. If there was still one inside, he was now gone. We waited. No planes, no ship artillery. Though either we had hit the comrade of the other field post's number, or there was no one there. But I had seen something. So wait. After another hour, all wounded were rescued and the vehicles that were broken were pushed aside. 2 trucks, 2 tanks, and a PSW were destroyed. 8 dead and some injured. Wonderful. Day march is a suicide mission, as long as our Air Force does not go against the enemy. Orders came, and we were supposed to move forward. We rolled on. No enemy soldiers or vehicles to be seen. But they didn't mean anything. Came over the hollow path to the farmhouse from before. Rudy suggested we'd get closer and see if we find enemy soldiers in there. Said, done. Panther mowed down the fences and got close to the house. The comrade tank pushed even further forward and secured. The roof was almost swept away, and the debris were scattered all over the yard. Then we saw the VB, an American soldier whose body had been ripped open by one of the explosive grenades. The second one probably hauled him out of the house. But there was more. There were more corpses. A woman lay half covered under the rubble, and a child could also be seen, half covered by the debris. Damned mess. There were still people in the house when we opened fire. Rudy and Fritz jumped out of the tank to see if anyone was still alive. The woman was dead. The child, unfortunately, too. We searched the observer and found a few maps with sectors drawn in. We took them with us. Somewhere there was surely a destroyed radio. Strange that he was all alone here. VBs usually have a close security guard with them. They might have absconded. We had to go on. Rudy was still kneeling at the child. It was a little girl. "Let it be, Rudy. We have to go on." He didn't move. "Come on, Rudy," Fritz said to him. "It's not your fault." Then he let go of the girl, and when he climbed up on the tank, I saw tears in his eyes. He climbed into the tower. I patted him on the shoulder and didn't say anything at first. War is war. But what is happening here is not nice. Civilians should not be in the combat zone. I left him alone, and we wanted to go on. We went back to the road and were supposed to roll on to help the comrades on the front. When we finally got back on the road and rolled over a small embankment, Kurt turned the wrong way. Tank slipped sideways into a small ditch. I reported to the platoon leader what had happened, and a recovery vehicle was called. The others formed up and rolled off. Wonderful. Now we are stuck here. We climbed out and looked at the mess. I didn't blame Kurt. I should have seen it from above, but now it was done. At least we were well camouflaged here, and not easy for the planes to recognize. It was already noon. We made some coffee and ate some bread, and distributed the salami I still had in my luggage. Rudolf was very thoughtful. I started talking to him. "Rudy, don't blame yourself. No one could have known. If we hadn't knocked out the one above, we and the other comrades would have also become victims of the ship's artillery." Rudolf said that the American had acted irresponsibly. He should have sent the people away. Then nothing would have happened to them. "Then war," he said very loud, so the others looked funny. Yes, he was right. But it is as it is. We have to push it aside and go on. Rudy nodded, but I knew he was fighting his own battle inside with him. The dead child, as a young father, it's always a bit different. But he has to shake that off now. I took Rudy aside and we walked a bit. I explained to him that I needed him now, more than ever. He's also an old hand, and the others respect him. Rudolf nodded and promised me that he would pull himself together. So we went back to the ditch. 2 hours later, a tractor came. We jammed everything and used pulleys on the big tree. It was hard work, but after a good 45 minutes, the chains gripped again and the Panther was back on the road. Everything uncoupled again, and with a big thank you and a bottle of red wine, the men of the salvage train set off again. We had now lost valuable time and had to catch up. Over the radio, we heard that there had been a big bang and our units were hard on the enemy. It would take us about an hour to get to the starting point of the attack. "Don't rush anything," I told our driver. "We don't want to overheat the engine and then not be there again." Off we went, and we rolled on. In the meantime, we had improved our camouflage, and we looked like a rolling bush. On the way, we met wounded transports bringing our comrades back. A Panzer-Lehr also came limping past us, apparently turret hit, but he could still drive. We were not quite at the scene and were stopped by a lieutenant from our company. I reported what was going on, and he directed us to the western direction. The Brits are pushing hard there, and we won't have enough firepower there. So, off through the bushes and further west. There was nothing further marked on my map, but we followed the noise of the battle. Small forest peace infantry came towards us, and a sergeant major of the Grenadiers explained the situation to us. Tanks in the east, Puck and infantry in the north, and our tank destroyers in the west. So we're supposed to go against the pack? I asked the sergeant major. He pointed to the edge of the forest, and there sat a young lieutenant who was regrouping his troops. Unaimed enemy shells rushed into the forest, so they couldn't see us here. I sent Rudy to the lieutenant to gauge the situation. After 5 minutes, he was back. Distance 1,000 meters. Pack. Probably English. Without vehicles. Peter, Rudolf told me. We rode further forward. The lieutenant climbed onto the tower and gave us the direction of the targets he had mentioned. Explosive grenade, I ordered, and Rudolf loaded the 75 and I gave the gunner the target. Fire release, and off went the projectile into position. If there was something there. I ordered 2 grenades per target. The Grenadiers had made out 3 or 4 enemy packs. And now it started. We got artillery fire, but thank God no ship's artillery. Only small caliber. The lieutenant stayed on the turret and stared through his binoculars to see if the enemy pack was knocked out. In the meantime, a few Grenadiers had advanced through the ditch and took the bush line under fire from a distance of 200 meters. Here and there, flashes of fire still flashed in the hedges. Then it became less and less. Time to roll forward. The lieutenant jumped off the tank and made his way to his SPW. Now it was getting tight. If we overlooked the pack, the Brits could give us a good one. We'll see, Rudy said, and off we went.